cheer for Vanir.
Okay, that was a lot to take in. I was not ready for that one. Vanir and Riddle, two teams that coming in from defeat. And from the previous interview, Eragon, we heard from Vanir, they were struggling mentally. And how can you help a team that is struggling and still have an opportunity to make playoffs?
So I definitely think it's a case of doubling down on the identity that they did have, right? So looking back at the games, Vanir had been drafting early game consistently, right? And on the opposite end of things, Riddle have been drafting late game consistently. I think Vanir actually have a good shot this game. If they play their early game cleanly, if they just take the Dragons, play consistently well into that scaling comp that Riddle will inevitably draft, I think they'll do fine.
It's mostly about looking into the bot side as well. Well, there's a lot of attention to the bot side.
Yeah, I feel like, okay, the moving game for Vanir in the early game is Kraox, right? But when it comes to these late game fights and you bring in someone like Mirbs who likes to be the focal point in these late game team fights, I feel like the guy has had some really pop-off performances. But I feel like right now the fit into Kevo is not going to be the easiest due to the flexibility of what Riddle have brought towards the bot side.
We can show the bot line, and we have a specific graph, I believe, towards the AD carries to understand Kevo and Mirbs, the difference in terms of champion pool, where Kevo can adapt, Mirbs is about carrying.
I mean,
carry.
How do you know what Kevo is going to pick? Is he going to pick early game? Is he going to pick mid game? Is he going to pick something safe? Is he going to pick an Enchanter bot lane? Is he going to pick a Mage bot lane? Is he going to pick a Senna? And if he picks a Senna, is he going to be the support or is he going to be the one that's farming? So I feel like what is really important right here is that there's so many flex picks. Also Seraphine, Lucian, Ziggs can go mid lane, Kog'Maw can go mid lane, Senna can go support, can go AD carry. So the flexibility that Riddle constantly bring in their draft is really towards their advantage, especially when you're red side, right? And if you look at Mirbs, he is the guy that Vanir are looking at when it comes to carrying their games. You go for that late game scaling with the Jinx, the Zeri, the Seraphine, the Ezreal, the Xayah, trying to carry your team forward. I think in particular his Xayah has been absolutely stellar this season.
Okay. It's to you, Eragon. You're the top player, and I need you on this subject specifically. Riddle picked the red side. We know what Jaxplank can do on the top side. Guide me through, how can you survive as a Vanir top player?
The question is, do you ban both Jax and Gangplank?
Oof, this is a difficult one. So I do think it's a case of Vanir have been drafting weak side top lane for the most part. Dreampool for the most part has been on those weak side picks. I think you have that staple in Gnar, which you could maybe take. But the thing is, Jaxplank has had counters to that. Like last time into, I can't remember the team, but he picked Kayle into GP. Into GP, right? So maybe you can't pick that. I think Gnar for Dreampool is probably going to be the go-to, and then survive the onslaught with the R5 counter pick that is Jaxplank.
So maybe pick something that you can survive on the top, look for openings to the bot side. It is the Vanir style of play, so they need to use their play style to beat Riddle. Willow coming in from the defeat. You believe that's enough, Turbo?
Okay, I think, Riddle.
Be honest with me.
Riddle did also lose to X7, right? And X7 seemed to be in gear right now that Viking has joined them. So that was a very slow Riddle game from what we have seen. Usually you have Stefan more on his selfish junglers farming the jungle, having priority lanes, yada, yada, yada. But right now Riddle are on the red side. And you have the chance to both counterpick your jungle if you want, or your bot lane, or your top most likely. And when it comes to Jaxplank, we're mostly looking for that second win condition that he creates through a side lane. So yeah, the core for Riddle, the 4-man core in the bot side of Riddle looks so freaking strong if it's a 4v4 or a 4 versus 5, but then having that second damn win condition where the guy's gonna take all your inhibitor towers and your Nexus and you're still fighting Elder Dragon is so annoying to deal with. And if you think about Dreampool, his best champion so far has been Ornn. And even though he got all this attention last time on the Ornn, it still went south for Vanir. So is it maybe the time to just put him on the offense?
Maybe let's see how he's going to fare on this game. It's going to be the first of the day, match day 15, Riddle versus Vanir. You want to do it?
Yeah.
Press the button. Let's jump into Champion Select. Well, that was a small tap. We need to do better than that, Trouble. Let's look. Vanir and Riddle. It was put on, but no.
Oh, come on.
Next time you're going to do it, okay? You're going to show how.
Okay. Next time.
Looking into the Champion Select, where should we focus? Bam, go.
So, for sure, I think early bans as Vanir, you take away some of the hyper scaling picks. I expect Seraphine, Gangplank, the scaling picks that you don't want to deal with, stuff like Seraphine, Zeri, Gangplank, etc. like this. If you're on the side of Riddle, you take away early game proactivity. So I think you take away potentially the Volley Bear, because Vanir have shown they are a early game team.
I'm actually really scared of Ericsson's Corki because even though Vanir were 10k behind in the previous game versus Dusty, these Corki rockets hurt. And if you reach 2 to 3 items, he becomes so obnoxious to deal with. I really agree with Riddle right here. I just want to see what the reply is if potentially Jaxplank goes towards his Jax. The Poppy here ban shows me that Creox wants to go back to his roots, wants to bring back out the Lee Sin, and this was a champion that Creox made such a good impression in the NLC with, bringing in that Lee Sin. Now looking at Ericsson, if you're gonna lock in the Lee Sin, you need Swain, you need Ari, you need Lissandra, you need setup in the mid lane.
And look into this, Jax is not banned and you still have the counter pick to the top side. I don't think Jaxplank will first pick it. What is first pickable here right now?
I think it's really difficult, right? I think you could go for the Gnar early, depending on Dreampool plays it. I think...
Could go for the Wukong. We've seen
Wukong, of course.
But it's
so
still
the
relevant.
Poppy ban, actually, I was going to say, the Poppy ban indicates to me immediately potential Wukong pick, right? You're seeing this in the LPL as well, in the LCK. Poppy to counter the Wukong.
Disappointed!
You were expecting what? Lee Sin?
Yeah, obviously, sorry, go on.
No problem, it's okay.
So they got the Wukong as the first one. Now they can reply. They can look not only for the jungle, they can look to solidify instantly the bot lane as well. What do you see
Zeri,
trouble?
there it is.
Division.
Okay, I'm just gonna go past my disappointment over Creox picking Wukong over his Lee Sin. But yeah, if you go towards the other side of the coin, you're probably picking a lot of scaling in the bot lane for Riddle because you have red side, and we all know how they do like to play around Vladdy, Stefan, and Jaxplank. So picking something that stays relatively safe in the laning phase, especially now that Kalista is also banned, I feel Zeri is a pretty good pick right here, and you can pair her up with a bunch of different supports. Yumi, for example, comes to mind, unless they want to steal it here, potentially with the Twitch. Yumi has gone through the entire picks and bans.
And we've seen Mirbs pick a lot of Ezreals. Now you do know who you're going to fight against. You know it's a Zeri. So what do you think should be the counter pick right now?
Well, it looks like they've already drafted the Senna. I mean, this looks like a standard Riddle draft, right? Like scaling bot lane, aggressive jungle. This is exactly what I expected. And now they've locked in the LeBlanc. Is that locked in? I can't tell.
It's still
Oh, sorry, it was still hovering. Yeah. The Senna Tom Kench to match. What it looks like they're doing is they're just handshaking scaling.
Yeah, and I think right here you're also locking the Yumi because it is huge stonks, especially since you know that you have a Xin Zhao. Yumi Xin Zhao so strong in the late game. You've got the Zeri, second target right there. Jaxplank is probably gonna pick something along the lines of his champions like fighters all along, which Yumi really shines with. So I think this is a no-brainer pick right here from Riddle and really good for them because here they would either have to drop two things. Ericsson showing the LeBlanc right there. If you look in the LeBlanc, there's Ari, there's the Sandra, there's Swain. There's a bunch of things that you can pick into it. But if you pick the Yumi, then the bot lane is just, as you mentioned, Aragon, a handshake, and then we're going towards that mid lane. I'd like to see Lissandra's banned. I'd possibly like to see Swain's banned as well.
Ericsson with this Swain, that could appear yet again. He's a beast on that one, so they need to remove that away. They're going to take the safe pick for the top lane. There's no more Gnar. Jax is still online. They're going to take the Fiora. Maybe they'll take the Jax afterwards, which means Swain will be available.
My whole plan of giving Dreampool Gnar, it's all out the window.
What else is safe?
I mean,
Ornn,
the
and
Ornn.
it's gone again.
And
no.
Oh no, the Ornn is bad. So it's really interesting. Vanir saw...
Renekton?
Renekton, but no.
No, I'm kidding, I'm just
chance.
baiting you.
Awful against Zeri. Absolutely awful against Zeri. But you see, they banned Fiora trying to get the Ornn, and then immediately Riddle recognized this and banned the Ornn. So what's another safe blind pick top? Is
Okay, what that tells me is that the fact that you ban the Fiora and the Jax is you have an angle for Camille right here. They both do really well into the Camille, and you need an active lane to play through. So I'm thinking right here, Vanir want to have a strong top side of the map. Seeing the Sellers right here, though. Sellers does not have way too many good ultimates so far. Like Senna and Time Cancelled is not necessarily something you want. The Camille ult, if you do end up locking the Camille in here, is not something necessarily that Silas is super happy to have. So I think locking in the Camille right here, you're in a pretty good matchup, and then lock something in the mid lane that can actually pair up with it. Galio Camille would be so freaking good.
There it is.
There you go.
I think it's going to be a Darius counterpick.
The top side?
Darius is really good into Camille, and I've seen Jaxplank's OPGG.
Yumi as well?
Yeah, Jaxplank's OPGG. Oh no, let's see.
Oh, now he's baiting us
stop
in.
getting baited,
He's
stop getting
baiting
baited.
us in. I really like the clan. I was about to scream.
There it is.
There you go.
Predicted the
It's still
future.
an over, but I think it's going to be the Darius.
Nice.
Why does it work?
So basically, Camille has no real insane all-in windows ever. If Camille ever ease in, Darius essentially presses Ghost and runs him down. Darius always gets prio. It's a horrible matchup 1v1.
So what we take from this entire Champion Select for both teams, Riddle looking for the second spot, Vanir still looking to get into playoffs run. Trouble, who do you think is going to take it?
I'd just like to say that Vanir have an extremely strong top side of the map, and I really like what they're doing, but Senatam Kens has never been my favorite, and Riddle have drafted themselves 4 targets potentially for Yuumi. One days you have another one, the other days that we have another one, the other days you have another one, and the 4th one is going to wipe the entire place if Yuumi is still alive. So I really like the fact that Riddle have got strong side on Jax, Blank, and the rest of the map is scaling together with the Yuumi. I'll go with Riddle here.
So who do you think is going to win, Aragon?
I think it depends on if Vanir can pull off the top jungle duo and set up the ganks on the immobile Darius. I think that really is what it is. But honestly, judging from previous form, I actually think Riddle's going to win.
Riddle are looking to take in the second seed. This could be the last opportunity for Vanir. So without further ado, let's toss it to the casters, the duo, the UK. It is initialized in Nightmare.
So what are we going to do this week, Nightmare?
The same thing we do every week, Sam. Try to take over the league. Hello and welcome back to the NLC, of course. First game getting loaded up, and these drafts are kind of interesting in some ways. We use that word a lot, but in this case,
it's quite true.
Because actually I'll be interested by it, because seeing that Darius locked into the Camille Galio reminds me very much of the first week that we saw Dusty coming into the league. They locked in a Darius into the Galio Camille and said, all right, you want to come into us? Welcome to this zone of infinite damage and healing which Darius has around himself. Shame is he can't really get that outside of it. Getting onto targets is difficult. Diving onto him, it becomes really, really dangerous. I think that when you're playing around that Darius, a lot of bad things can happen, and giving, you know, Jax Plank a large amount of agency, that has typically been Riddle's path to success.
Absolutely, and honestly, over the last few weeks, we've had some criticisms of Riddle and their inability to either facilitate Jax Blank or play to other parts of the map if that's kind of become a weak side. And we're set up now for a bit of a clash up there, really.
Yeah, because Riddle are no longer the second best team in the NLC. They are not viewed by that in terms of the interviews that we've had coming out. We've seen JDXL, seen a couple of other teams interview and say, actually, you know what? Let's look at this X7. Let's look at this Dusty lineup. You know, it's not Riddle on everyone's lips. They've had these cracks showing. They were typically playing through Jax Plank, and Jax Plank got a little bit solved. He was ganked early. He was losing in a couple of side lane matchups. And the question is now, for this game, Vanir, is do or die for them on their side of the rift. Can they solve that same question to the Jax Plank problem?
The Jax Plank problem has been something that eluded and caused conniptions for teams for many weeks here in the NLC. But as you said, it's kind of been semi-solved. And the question now is whether the adaptations here saying, okay, well, you've kind of indexed here into fighting into this top lane, but you have now got a Darius who's pretty good in those situations.
I never played many of these games, but do you remember the Professor Layton puzzle-solving games?
Vaguely, yes.
Now, this would be one of those. It's like, oh, you have a problem. It's not like there are 2 barbers with 2 different kinds of haircuts, and you have to solve which one you'd go to for your haircut. By the way, you go to the one with the bad hair, because the only other person that could cut his hair is the other barber who has the nice hair. So you go to the person... Anyway, that would be a problem to solve. Another one would be, of course, in this game, what the heck are you going to do about this, Darius?
You've got one with a big axe and one with a pair of scissor legs. So I imagine the one with the scissor legs would do hair cutting better, because, you know, scissors are better than axes for hair cutting.
Yes, unless you get the... Was it Blades of Glory, that one ice skating movie where...
Oh, that's true. Well, that's right. Well, that was for trimming the beard specifically, but it was the Iron Lotus in Blades of Glory. You're right.
Of some kind. Anyway, yes. So I am actually a little surprised at Ericsson taking the Aftershock on this Gallo, because obviously that's going to lead into what's happening with this top lane, because normally you want something like a Predator. That's what we've seen at the LPL. It's been an incredibly powerful pick over in China, and it's allowed you to enable the rest of the map. It allows you to roam early and do stuff. Going for the Aftershock, though, more power in the initial 2v2 in mid lane, and as you can see, doing well with those smashes early on, and this matchup in the mid lane, of course, outside of the draft, when we were kind of looking into this game, kind of preparing for it, Ericsson versus Vladdy was a matchup that I would have, loved to focus on, because these are 2 big playmaking players for their team.
Yeah.
Now, Vladdy, you can see going in here on the side, is going to have a lot of agency in this game. You can see how much that Kingslayer does in this matchup.
Yeah.
But both of these players coming in with a lot of playmaking potential, and Vladdy only 16 years old, very young player, and his entry to the league's been good.
It really has, and like this is a guy who came in after Riddle had a bit of a weird spring split. They knocked out X out in that first round of playoffs in a massive shock upset. And then from there on, of course, we may need to pull back on this narrative from Jaxplank's had to pop the ghost and is under the attempt of an early gank, but it won't turn into too much. So I think we can turn our eyes and attentions back towards Vladdy in the mid lane. And his kind of entry into the league as this young superstar in a lot of ways, asked to play a lot of different stuff, even if the focus has often been towards the top side. On the other side, it's Ericsson. This is the guy who demoted into Div 3 with Verdant, who, while he's got massive support from his family and stuff, it's been amazing to see all those kind of videos.
By the way, if you didn't see last week's broadcast with the found on the street, Vanir, go watch it. Really wholesome stuff. Of course, getting into gaming. Sometimes people around us can find that a little hard to accept at times, so it's really wholesome video of
Absolutely.
Dream Pool's quite wholesome. They've been torn into him by Jaxplank's axe. He's got many holes in him.
Flash hookshot to escape there as Jaxplank stacked up the passive, but Vladdy now might be in a spot of bother, about to get baited in. There's the Torn into the knock-up, and an Nimbus strike will help Ericsson secure first blood with the Winds of War.
Not only does he have support from his family, he's got it from his jungle too! Kriox is here! There you go, 1 kill, 1 assist for the mid-jungle duo. When you saw the Wukong and the Xin Zhao locked in, you kind of thought this was going to be an interactive matchup. Now, when you have these mid laners, you kind of want to get out of the lane. That's what Silas and
Particularly this matchup, right, where you steal the Galio ult.
Exactly. Instead of the hero's entrance at that point, it's the villain's entrance. That's what I'm calling it now.
So is it a super villain entrance, though? Does it have the presentation? You don't get that reference. Go watch Megamind and
both
understand.
of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Not for two.
No, we're both leaving as fast as we can once we hit level 6.
Yeah, mid lane is not big enough for both of these super whatever they are. And but yeah, no, first kill on the board for Vanir, and of course they are trying seriously hard to stick the landing second half of the split. And that is a good start to it, getting a kill onto that Galio. Of course, Galio is going to be a big part of the pylon damage later on. Galio, not the highest resource champion, but if you do get gold on him, wow, he does pack a punch if you're stuck in all of his AoE.
Absolutely true. And of course, as we were saying, for Ericsson, this was a guy who had demoted. Then gets his shout up at Div 1, but there were questions around, honestly, both of these players about how well they could perform stepping into Div 1 with very different histories. For Vladdy, very little history at all. So it's really interesting and been very pleasant to see both of these laners succeed, really, even if they've not necessarily been the primary focus for their teams. They've slotted in just fine, and in this particular matchup with these particular champions, they are...
the wave crash, actually.
Indeed.
Stefan's here, no jungle here from Vanir.
Yeah, have to turn our eyes away from all of that as a flash from both Mirbs and Zaremba popped after the blast cone over the wall gets Stefan a lot of value.
It's a little lazy from Mirbs and Zaremba. They think that strength in numbers of minions, that's actually the added bit onto that proverb. It's not just strength in numbers, it has to have a minion kind of archetype after that. Anyway, right. They kind of take a bit too much safety in that, get punished, they lose a couple of summoners. It's not the most instrumental thing. Both of these lanes looking to kind of scale up into that mid game. When we hit, you know, 2 items onto that Zeri, when Senon starts kind of getting the ultimate available, things get awkward. Speaking of ultimates, we're going topside.
Level 6 has been hit. That means Jaxplank's in danger. Has flashed away. He's got the Decimate, but there is the Taunt, and Ericsson gets a second. From Div 2 relegations to Div 1, taking down a few members of the second-best team in the league.
And you know that answer to the Jaxplank problem? Don't need no Professor Layton. You need yourself a big old gargoyle in the mid lane. Ericsson combos up, doesn't even need Kriox to be up there. Now 2-0 on the Galio, going for Sork boots first. None of this defensive boots shenanigans. Ericsson is starting to snowball.
However, Mirbs and Zaremba don't have flash, and you do see Vladdy has roamed down towards the spot side, but even with the wave around, decide against looking for the dive. He's actually going to have his back interrupted with no teleport. That could be quite punishable. Stefan, though, has taken this opportunity to secure the first Drake of the game here for Riddle, so at least there has been some trade back.
So, what is the state of the game now? Because you still have a Darius who is in the game. No. Are they pushing down turret plates? Are they taking kills themselves? No. But there is going to be a point where even if this Darius is behind, he's going to be a threat. Question is, at what point can Riddle start playing around that, having side lane threat? He's lost some plays himself, lost a couple of kills, and that means that maybe Vanir can hold this Darius in check for a little longer. So Riddle making sure they can get this dragon helps them actually stall to a point where maybe that happens. That's going to be what I'm keeping my eyes on. Can actually Riddle get to a point where they can now buy some time for Jaxplank to get gold and play through that as a win condition by stopping Vanir from forcing their hand around dragons?
My issue is once we get to some of those dragons, of course, you've got Camille and Galio who can lock the normally very slippy Zeri into a cage, probably with a Yuumi on top of her, which means you get a 2-for-1 special there, and they do not like being trapped in a box.
No. Wait, would that be like Schrodinger's Yuumi at that point? Do you want to? Can we do quantum?
Does the Hextech ultimatum count as enough of a box?
Yeah, can we make it like the quantum ultimatum or something? Actually, like Yuumi becomes the cat, and the wave function either comes down to Yuumi is dead or Yuumi is alive. Gain through. You just open. You
Gain
open the
300 gold.
You open the Chameleon. There's just like 300 gold in it. It's like, oh, the Yuumi guess the Yuumi was there. Yeah. Things you learn on NLC broadcast. We're also going to learn what's going to happen around this Herald. Of course, that hero's entrance not available from Galio. Huge cooldown. Vanir have less tools to work with.
Zaremba isn't here either. Important to note, whereas everybody from Riddle is, and that's already a dead Herald. Kraox will go in regardless, though. They'll throw down the hero's entrance, but I think it's just going to be Kraox dying, and he falls down in swift fashion.
But that's because it's the villain's entrance.
Of course
it's
it is.
stolen by Silas. We called it out on the run-up to it. That Galio ultimate was used topside. Huge cooldown, and they didn't even have their Tahm Kench there to bail out someone on the first stage of the fight. Riddle, they have more to play with around the Herald. Vanir commit anyway and lose the fight.
Mirbs is topside, though. I don't know how far off level 6 he is, but Jaxbank might now be in danger, locked into the Hextech ultimatum, but this is a cage match, and Darius is normally pretty damn good with those. He's learned from his brother after all. The apprehend going on to Mirbs, taking a lot of damage. Oh. There's an Noxian guillotine. He gets the kill and gets out. Jaxplank will not be denied.
I mean, call him a physicist because Jaxplank is alive. He opens up that box, no 300 gold inside that waveform, and they use, again, more resources towards this topside, try and shut down this Darius, but this time it doesn't work out. We thought it would actually, well, I thought it would be a little later into the game where Jaxplank would be becoming that big threat if you end up trying to make plays towards him, but it's only 9 minutes in, and Jaxplank had so much on his shoulders this game in terms of the draft. Vanir just overplay their hand.
Riddle me this, though. They've posed a question down in this bot side. Play onto Zeri and a Herald in inventory. There is definitely a world now where that gets dropped bot and more pressure is put towards the bot side map. But let's go back to this replay because Dreampool goes pretty hard to get on top of Jaxplank here.
So that's a missed tactical sweep, missed wall dive as well from the hook shot. And you have Mirbs coming up topside without an ult. Goes melee range into the Darius, who outplays with the Ghost, and now Jaxplank really running away with it. And as soon as you get that passive stacked up, you have that ultimate reset, you can't really continue that fight. Vanir, maybe they found themselves a bit of a winning situation, but much like their game versus X7, felt like it could be a winning situation, but it's just been mis-executed.
Yeah, missed the last embrace to boot, and you've missed, like, what, 3 forms of pretty important CC there, and the Darius gets to run away with a little bit, gets back into the game, and yes, there's still a bit of a gold lead for Vanir right now, but that could quite happily get changed with the drop of that Herald.
Maybe next time they can call up 80s movie stars and try and become Ghostbusters and stop Jaxplank from using that. Well, he's actually in mid, doesn't even need the summoner to spook Ericsson. You tell him what to think. Tell him on a tangent.
I was trying to think of appropriate. What's the Christmas action movie? I mean, with what's his name? Bruce Willis in. I'm forgetting the name of.
Hang on, what Christmas action movie with Bruce? Oh, what? Die Hard.
Die Hard. That's what I was going to go. Die Another Day. I was like,
that's
the wrong. I went to Bond.
Movie of all time.
Anyway, yeah. Anyway. Apparently my brain was also dying really hard very quickly there. Wasn't a lot of brain to die though. Let's be real.
PKA top lane.
Oh dear.
Okay, let's go. Well, I mean, we like to stop off some silly tangents at points. Let's just make sure we have a whistle-stop tour of what's happening across the map as well. Because actually, first, 8 minutes of the game, Vanir actually achieved a lot of what I hoped they would do. They got, that kill in mid lane, gets Galio ahead. And Galio is this kind of champion where if you're making a big play, Galio's probably going to be there too. So gold on him will be apparent in all of the big scenarios. And he managed to do some stuff top lane too, but Jaxplank is now fine. Riddle don't need to put resources up there, which is why Stefan is more than happy to hang around bot side. They have Vladdy ready to answer. Ericsson will actually have that hero's entrance available to steal in his own right pretty soon, whereas Vanir once again putting their resources topside. Jaxplank has a flash, no ghost, but what can he do with this situation?
Cyclone's come down. Ericsson is thinking about following up. It'll force a flash out of Jaxplank. All the while, though, Dragon is being started in the bot side of the map. There is a Herald that's been spawned as well, or about to be spawned, I think, as well, though that was just a quick reset on my screen.
Get the first turret. Cower's going.
They're going to try and race for it. The final chapter comes through, and that means
the
Mirbs is just dead to Riot. There's no room for the Devour, which means he's just dead. No way out. Now Zaremba is left to the wolves, or at least the Rift Heralds and her entourage.
Galio?
They'll throw down the Galio ult though, and the hero arrives just in time. Silas, you should really have a better idea of what your opposition in Demacia can do. In comes Dreampool as well. They'll get another one back, and now Stefan is in trouble. The railgun comes through as a final salute, and they make that a 2-for-1.
I mean, with great power comes great multi-kill potential. Ericsson flies into that bot side, and this Galio, the control tower of this composition that wants to be at every big play, turns up at the right time, didn't have to do anything topside, returns to mid at the most important of occasions. Jumping back into the replay, though, big misplay from Zaremba and Mirbs. They get spaced out in that final chapter. They don't get into range of that Devour, so Zaremba cannot bail out the center to use their own ultimate, make the fight a little more difficult. And then the hero of the hour, the hero of the day, here is bloody entrance. What an ultimate there from Ericsson.
Zaremba survives in about 50 HP, and then they can start making these plays as Dreampool comes in as the cavalry. And another kills come straight through, and Vanir punished so damn well.
And this brings us back to now a point where Vanir are finding advantages. Now, Riddle, go back a couple of weeks, this is the team which everyone was talking about as the second best team
to beat,
in the league.
right?
The team to be outside of JDXL. They, in fact, a couple of weeks ago, they hadn't even faced JDXL, so potentially there was a chance that they could be even better than that. Zaremba, no flash, of course, had to use that in the earlier plays. He's going to get dove on.
There's Stefan as well. This top jungle duo has been so deadly for Riddle, but even they can't hold on to the Tahm Kench for long enough to really threaten him there. Gets healed up with a piercing darkness, and yes, it's a Herald spawning shortly. And Riddle, in fairness, have got themselves a lot of those early neutral objectives, but they are still down. 2,000 odd gold. We've got a Senna who's scaling pretty well. That's a Night Harvester in for this Galio, who's going to hit pretty damn hard, aftershock or not. They're going to go in the bot side.
No ultimate for Dreampool, but a lot of damage.
A lot of damage, and they're going to throw down the final chapter, but the turnaround damage is going to be pretty huge until the flash. Cyclone means Kevo is down for the count. Now Nash will be gnashing and wailing in this particular moment. It's biblical proportions of damage, and Riddle dropped 2 in the bot side.
And in the 2v1 on the side lane, Riddle go a little too far. Kevo and Nash typically been left on an island themselves, but they try and make something more of themselves in that situation. Don't see Creox coming in, though. Didn't have appropriate vision to go forward. Riddle lose 2 on that bot side. What can Riddle do? Jaxplank has turned up. He's going to be able to save the tower at least. But already, Riddle are falling behind the speed of the game. They're not actually making the big plays. They've tried to do something on top side towards Zaremba. It really wasn't with much direction, though. Riddle, they don't have Jax planning ahead, and it feels like they're starting to lose out across the board here against Vanir, who, again, reminder, what an important game this would be for them to win. 5 and 9, trying to catch up to Bifrost, and plays like this showing intent, making sure they're using their powerful members across the map. This is good signs to them if they want to continue in the rest of this split to chase that playoff stream.
And partly this is Vanir's comp as well, right? You've got, you know, 2 teleports, a global, a Wukong who can dive for miles and is clearly willing to in Creox's instant. There we go. There we go. Finally found the word I was looking for, and you can see it now in the gold discrepancies. Big leads for the solo lanes.
We were talking a lot about the not Gangplank again. I just see a Jaxplank and I see a Galio on one side, and there are just too many.
I did that last week as well. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, it's a difficult time. You know, it's like the game just sometimes looks at you in Jedi mind tricks and says, "This is not the word you are looking for."
And about 2 weeks later, those same stormtroopers like, "Oh no, it really was the game I was looking for."
Looking up from their morning coffee and a newspaper. Hang on a second.
Did Vladdy just use his ultimate to get mid because it was timing out? That was entertaining.
Uses the whistle stop tour of the Rift as he goes on a fast travel towards mid lane.
So make mid lane the Legion of Doom headquarters as the villain enters there.
That is such a reach.
It was.
That is such a reach.
Yes,
Maybe it is. You know, I'll give it to you anyway because I'm feeling particularly generous today. But Vanir still sat here at 5 and 9. You see that score there. The 7-win margin is currently what Bifrost holds with 4 games left for every team. They need Bifrost to lose a couple of games. They're currently, of course, 1 loss down to Bifrost, but they have to face them again. They can take one of those wins away from them and then maybe tie-break with them later into this split. So Bifrost already looking shaky. Vanir were to win this effectively, to sum this all up, if Vanir win here and they carry on this form, they actually have a damn good chance of making it to playoffs.
Absolutely. Of course, with the soul point on the line here for Riddle, it doesn't look like they're going to be able to come in and contest very easily, so Vanir will get a hold of that. And again, they win this game. They get themselves to base camp It's a long, long climb ahead of them, but this would be a fantastic start. A fantastic start for a potential playoff dream run.
You know, Artrom has affected our dictionary. There's a whole lot of climbing the mountain in that. I mean, what a good analogy it is for these teams. You know, a lot of these, you know, Riddle and Vanir, they are teams which have had to look up at the other challengers for a little while now, looking at these strong, strong teams across the NLC. And looking at this Herald, can they actually get it away? I think they can smite it. I think they can. Oh, Creox wasn't there in time. Smite was on cooldown, actually. Charge actually comes in. It's actually not going to mean that much. It's just whether Vanir can keep their mid lane turret a little healthier. Of course, taking down a mid lane out of turret has so many implications. It allows you to get that deep vision in. And of course, you can see right now, vision hasn't really crossed the river from either team, and that's what makes those plays so dangerous the next time you pull them off. We see it already, Riddle kind of fall prey to not having vision on one place that they wanted to make plays when Kevo and Nash died, where the screen's showing right now around this bot side. But this time they do have at least 1 or 2 wards in river to spot out anyone who might aggress onto this Darius.
Yeah, and of course, you know, when you are looking at a comp that does want to be playing towards those side lanes like Vanir's does, if you can get rid of that mid lane tower, you can punish a lot harder. It makes it a lot more difficult to make those side lane plays if you don't have control of the middle of your map. It's an old adage of pretty much any bit of commentary and analysis you care to mention in League of Legends.
And in this game, you know, we talked a lot about stories, but let's get back to this game at hand a little more. We talked about the mid lane turret, but what realistically are these teams looking to do? We talked about Riddle trying to stall out the game a little bit. Taking the early dragons means that they're not threatened by an early soul point or anything like that. Of course, it's a Cloud Rift. Cloud Rift is not as important as many other Dragon Souls, because they tend to end the game. When you have an Infernal Soul, a Hextech Soul, a Mountain Soul, even Ocean in the team fights, which go a bit longer nowadays, they just tend to be such fighting power that you can't afford to give them up. In this game, though, Riddle did take some early dragons, and they're happy to give up a couple of dragons in return now to just buy some time. You can see that Jaxplank hasn't fallen behind in CS. It's starting to build up the items, and at some point, Jaxplank is going to become hilariously strong.
Maybe like now?
Is he strong enough right now?
They're going to try. Kevo gets chunked very heavily, but it's not quite enough, and now Creox is in danger. Has to flash away, but I know they can get over the wall. There's no warrior trickster to get him out of there, and that'll be the jungler dead, and then Vanir and the rest of the squad must extricate themselves from a difficult position. But Jaxplank maybe can look to keep going forward. Stefan steps forward with the audacious charge, gets a Yuumi on top of him, but they'll only get the 1 kill for the invested teleport and ghost.
Vanir, again this game, they've done it once or twice, and of course that top lane plan to Jaxplank was the first of them. They don't quite land the punch. You can see they're looking for a play, but the execution just isn't there. Crix goes in, and actually Vanir see the angle and they go, oh heck, this is not going to work. They don't even pull the Galio ult, but they still blow Creox's flash. Just a misread play, and Riddle, as much as we talk about how important this game would be to win, they got to win it first.
Oh yeah.
Riddle punish them for the thought.
Not out of this game yet are Riddle, and they are very deadly in a 5v5 if they can get all of their members on the board here. A lot of healing, a lot of playmaking, a lot of slippery targets, and you can only Hextech Ultimatum one of them. Of course, if you do get to split it up and play across those sides, it's a slightly different matter, but situations like this in the replay are pretty damn Riddle favored, frankly.
So this is also kind of, you know, this is Riddle trying to play around Vanir trying to play around the vision they do have. They have a couple of wards spotting the entries into River, but they're just not in position. They're fighting on multiple fronts. Camille doesn't find a way into that fight, and if you aren't hitting your targets when you have that Jaxplank, and you got a Zeri who's now on 2 items as well, you kind of have to call off the play. That fight would have gone from bad to worse if they committed into it. So they just lose the jungler. What this actually meant is they lost a lot of pressure across the board, but Dreamfall's finding another way in.
Ultimatum into the grand entrance. 3 members, though, from Riddle trying to survive, and they'll turn it around. So much damage coming back, but now Vladdy into stasis. He goes, but will he be able to survive the final chapter? Will root up to Remba. Now he is a sacrificial frog, but maybe not quite enough. A flash idol of Durand. Still not to secure the kill, but Yuumi will not be able to save the jungler to 1-for-1 right now, but Jaxplank has turned up. It is going to be each jungler who falls, but man, that was a skirmish that could have gone either way.
Oh, and an entrance of epic proportions. We have a hero on one side, the villain on the other, and mid lane wasn't big enough for either of them, as the number of members ended up dying from that confrontation. It's really funny how we talked about them trying to leave mid lane. They both used them, but they just overlapped their ultimates basically onto the same speck of earth right in the middle of the rift. And Vanir, again, you can see that they're trying to force the play, but I feel like they're getting a little bit over-eager now. It looks like they're trying to force the play, and this time it was with Silas still with that stolen ultimate available. I felt like they should have maybe just slowed down a little.
I'm aware, obviously, I misnamed that when I went for Grand End, which of course was Rakan's, but when you got two of them coming in at once, I feel Grand is probably a better epithet anyway, so I'll hold to that one. I'll call that one a blessing, all those little, happy little accidents, so to speak. But now on to another Dragon, Vanir. They'll secure that one before Riddle can really get on top here, but now Stefan with Yuumi on top may look for a little bit more, and that mid lane turret is very, very low, so that might be Riddle's attempt at a counter play.
Well, notice how Riddle aren't quick to pull the engage themselves. In fact, they, in the grouped situations, they haven't pulled the trigger once. They've waited for Vanir to come into them, and they've obliged them. They've gone for it. Riddle trying to walk up, see if they can take that mid lane out of turret. Talked about the importance of that one already. But now, after that Dragon's gone down, after a lot of those key ultimates were used that first time around, we're going to go back to some side lane gaming, which is, of course, one of the big phases of play which Vanir have been winning in so far. So when they're splitting the map open again, let's see if Vanir can find those same advantages again.
Of course, the problem is with both of those outer towers down, but the one in the mid lane still standing. It's actually quite difficult, I think, for them to really push those lanes up and threaten. We've seen what happens if they don't quite all get on the same page at the same time. Riddle certainly have the damage and CC potential to punish those over-engages.
You have two items on the Silas now. Of course, we've been talking a lot about the Galio, and rightfully so, it has been at every fight and one of the big turning factors of every fight. But when you have Liandry's, which of course gives you more cooldown reduction than an Everfrost, it actually gives you more individual power as a Silas compared to the more setup, Vladdy is going to be strong. That's the baseline of it. That's the simplification of it. Vladdy is strong. If you let him fight, much like everyone else in Riddle, Vanir are going to have a tough time of it. It just, again, stresses the importance of Vanir. When they make an engage, it's got to be good.
Yeah, and I think that's fair to highlight Vladdy, this player who has honestly been just behind the big three of the mid laners in the league in terms of M&S, Tempt, and of course Backland for those stats as that mid lane turret finally falls for Vanir. Big moment for them getting that one down. But Vladdy, you know, he's been right up there, especially considering his rookie status, putting up some impressive numbers for this guy who's, you know, 4th place in a lot of those big number stats. You know, the CS, the damage, the GPM. He's right up there. Not quite at that top 3 level, but not far off either.
And, you know, I think of his Azir as well. Really big playmaker on that champion. One of the reasons why I wanted to highlight him at the very start of this game. Of course, the draft has aired itself more towards that Darius on his team comp, but of course, it's Jax Plank. You got to talk about him at some point. But Vladdy has really been a big playmaker. Let's go mention that again. And on the Silas this time, really has a lot of ability to impact this game. If he steals that Galio ult, steals even something like that Wukong ult, lots of abilities to affect this game.
It does feel like this game's slowed down as well right now.
Well, I think it has to, right?
Of course it does.
Vanir have failed the engage a couple of times now. I think they've realized what's up. If they don't find the right targets, Riddle will turn it around. Whereas Riddle, we also mentioned, aren't looking for the engage themselves. So what we're realistically looking at is mistakes in the side lanes, someone's over pushing, hasn't got the right vision, or a mistake around an objective. Because objectives kind of do your engaging work for you, because they're all clumped up, they're all lined up against a wall, and you can try and take a good couple of swings at them. So look at the side lanes, look at the objectives, that's where things might come to a head. Speaking of those side lanes, Dreampool and Jax Plank finally matched up against each other in a lane for the first time in quite a while.
Indeed, and I think for Dreampool, I think we'll ask when is the next bit of action going to be happening. Well, probably when Dreampool has Flash available, because that feels like pretty much the go button every time. Flash hook shot into the backline has been the go button Vanir have been relying on, and that'll be up in probably about 10 to 20 seconds or so, and that'll be pretty shortly in time for the likes of another dragon fight.
Maybe Vanir can go hunting for spectral monsters again and try and take away the summoners of Jax Plank in another round of ghost hunting. I am going to keep trying to say don't make a remake.
It took me longer than I like to realize.
I feel like a remake wouldn't do well.
Paranormal activity here on the cast. Like, what's going on? I see ghosts specifically in the top lane summoners.
Normal day at the NLC household. What do you mean? On further examination, Alex and Sam were not negative casting. So finally, a unoccupied mid lane tower means Kevo actually gets to walk up and take this free. Lane assignment from Vanir looked like it was going well for a while, but this is a pretty untimely mistake for them. This one's really awkward because you would have loved to have this coming into the next minute of play for that dragon, maybe force Riddle to answer with that tower take while you can set up around that dragon. That's not going to lead up to them now. Speaking of that dragon, of course, it's not soul point for either one. We've got 2 dragons apiece. It's not like we're going to an early Elder, an early Soul. both these teams will want to have it all the same. The Dream Pull has that all.
He just got his third item, which means Stefan's in so much danger. That's the heroic entrance. Vladdy steals his own. Now looking to show him how it's really done. Comes in, hits onto 4, but now is in very deep. Throws down the stakes to try to stay alive. Kraox fails to flash over the wall and is now in danger as the turnaround from Riddle is pretty strong. Ghost popped on Jaxbank. He's got a Yumi on top. Flash for the Decimate and the Apprehend. Trying to get some kills. Kraox so low, finally falls. Jungler is down just before the spawn of the Dragon, and Riddle come out on top.
And Vanir flub the engage. They've done it so many times in these group team fights now. Riddle have been patient. They have been waiting for Vanir to try and engage onto them again, and they find their moment. Vanir, for so much of this game, had control of the side lane, but this time it's Riddle punishing the mistake, and if Vanir were to lose this one, what a horrid moment it would be for them after so many bright moments during this game. Going back into this replay, it was, as you were calling out, is Dream Pull that was pulling the trigger, but we've talked about them needing to have a really good engage, catching the targets they need to, and they get the jungler, and they think, okay, cool, maybe you can kill that jungler before this fight really kind of comes into fruition. You can back off after that point, but Stefan survives the ult, the Yumi keeps them in the fray, and the amount of mobility and chase down that Azeri, Ghost Hunting Jax Plank has, and the Yumi gives to everyone is far too much for Vanir to pull out of these fights.
That turnaround run down in the mid lane was a thing of nightmares, to be sure. Riddle now with the soul point, more in control of this game than they had been for quite some time. Of course, Baron hasn't fallen yet. It's still a close game, but we're beginning to see the cracks in how Vanir are playing out this mid to late game.
And you know, we rightfully called out Riddle in terms of their recent run of form, having cracks of their own in terms of their recent games, but Vanir, they have had no shortage of their own errors to look at as well. I think it was Ericsson actually in one of the post-game interviews for X7 was saying, you know, we could have won that game at any point, but it was a bit of execution errors on their own end. It's kind of showing its head again here. Not to the same extent. I do think they've had many more good plays than they have bad. It's just that the bad plays were just that explosive. Losing the big team fights means so much. So not out of the game yet. Of course, they're going back into these side lanes. They're still going to be able to play around them very, very well. Not out of this game by any means, but Riddle are going to be confident now when things start to group. They've won all of the group fights in the... actually, in this game so far, really. They've won pretty much all of them. They've had that 1-1-for-1, but Riddle feeling very comfortable on that. Vanir, how can they start transforming this game to their advantage?
It's a Norwegian knockout, of course, this game. Both organizations coming from that country, and it's been a close one so far, even if there's, over the course of the split, Riddle have been the ones who've largely been favored, but there's a teleport in here.
Well, Jaxplank can't get to the fight. He doesn't have that.
They want this really badly. Dreampull's going forwards, gets the Hextech ultimatum. There is the Dawning Shadow over the top, and I don't know whether they've got quite enough to turn this one around. If the Galio afterwards is going to try and make this one a massive trade.
So many stopwatches!
But they cannot kill anybody. So many stopwatches. Finally, they kill them off. Stopwatches be damned. 3 for Vanir.
So many people going gold, but Riddle in that fight take silver. They come out second best, and Jaxplank wasn't there. Picture in picture, frame it on the wall. The Garrus doesn't have teleport. Vanir, they split the map. They weren't winning the big grouped up fights, but you remove one from the equation, and they walk away with the fight. What a crucial victory for them. We talked about them splitting the map, finding their own victories. It takes them a little while, a bit of that problem solving we alluded to, but they find an answer.
And for Kevo as well, this is against his former organization. Getting caught out like that by the Baron Pit, that is galling stuff.
But again, it really is just the vision play. You've got side lanes winning. They're pushing in bot side. Dreampull, he just says, you know what, YOLO, let's go for it. Goes in, takes most of his HP bar. But that's 2 Zhonya's already. That's a 3rd one out of Kevo too. Everyone's stopping time, but you can't buy enough for Darius to get across the entirety of the map. It's Baron, it's a whole host of kills. Vanir got to be in the driver's seat again now. What can Riddle do to try and take him from it?
404 enemy health bars, not found. A phenomenal game for Ericsson on this Galio, who ever since the early plays has been doing a lot of the lion's share of the work to secure Vanir. A lot of their advantages here, of course, now with the Baron for the 2 minutes. See what more they can get done. It does earn them at least some gold lead, but they'll need more than that to continue trading.
And that gold lead has been good to, it's been put to civic uses, it's been put towards public services, namely a library.
Wonderful.
Because
that's it.
We've got Ericsson with the book, buy the book. All y'all out there wondering how you can snowball a game.
Used book salesman.
I'm not saying I'm not, but I'm certainly heavily implying it because Ericsson, we've seen actually how much damage this Galio is doing. We talked about it after the first couple of kills came through, but adding the extra damage onto the kill combo is so important. This time Vladdy has the Galio ult, and that's the Yuumi ult been pulled as well.
Final chapter burned, but they don't really secure too much here. They do keep Vanir away from the turret, but Eric's isn't on the mid lane tier 2.
And again, we haven't really seen Vladdy and the rest of crew manage to find a good proactive engage. Now they're trying to punish across the map. Ericsson
might be in danger here as Jaxplant throws the ghost down, but he'll flash over the wall and Justice punch
No one's
away.
coming for him.
And now he's pulled out! He's pulled out! Goes golden, but I don't think that's going to be quite enough. They just need to interrupt his Justice punch. He's going to get the taunt. He's surely got to fall and does so. What does it cost them? Only a tier 2, but Page is straight out of the book.
And Vanir, they were the ones caught with the person missing this time. And it's Ericsson, this Galio. Now actually, Vanir looking to start and finish this dragon. I think this is gone. You need to get away from here.
Ryox is not going to be able to help Smite that one. He has to flash out to Dream Pull. So that's another summoner down. They lose the soul to boot, and Riddle, in a matter of moments, suddenly swing this game right back in their favor.
Both of our teams making some mistakes across the map, and this is, again, alluding to a point we've had for the last couple of weeks on the NLC, ever since Torok brought it up on one of his interviews, of course, coach of JDXL. No team in the NLC is not making mistakes. I think we can say that pretty clearly, but actually every team in the NLC is in a position to punish you for making your mistakes. This is why we even see teams like Noriki taking wins off of JDXL. Of course, they were playing with Substitute that game. Lots of caveats, but the point stands. No team is safe versus anyone in this league. We've had a lot of upsets, of course, last week being so many more than we come to expect.
Singularity over Bifrost?
Yeah,
Huge win.
but bringing it back to this game. Now we've had Riddle open up the map, leave that Baron up for Vanir, get torn apart, and then suddenly Vanir give over soul on the other point. This is still a very competitive game between a 10-win team and a 5-1. Need we remind you again of the stakes? Only 4 games left per team, this being one of them. Riddle chasing that second place, Vanir just looking to get into playoffs, and they are oh so close in both of their respective races.
Yeah. The bar for entry to playoffs right now is 7 wins, where you have to be matched up against Bifrost, and they need to not win any more games at that point.
Bifrost
that bar can only get higher.
Yeah, Bifrost are the ones raising that bar.
Exactly.
So very much watch out for their game later today. That'll be in game 4, of course, versus JDXL.
Big one.
That one's going to have so many implications. They will be asked a very tough question, just like both these teams have been asking questions of each other. It feels like the teams which have been making the engages have typically lost, especially when it has been grouped up as 5v5. Really has been about picking away at those seams, trying to pull apart the cloth of each of these teams. But now we're starting to get to the point where each of these champions has some bite. That Zeri, 4 items, a Guardian Angel in there too. That's what that broken stopwatch evolved into. Diving onto that Zeri going to be much more difficult now. And that starts to really worry you, if you are a Vanir fan, of what you can actually do in your big team fight engages. You weren't winning the 5v5s before. How can you do that with an extra life to cut through the important AD carry?
Between Barrier Flash, Spark Surge, a GA, a Yuumi, like that is a very hard Zeri to pin down for long enough to actually kill.
That's a pretty horrid shopping list of stuff to keep your AD carry alive. It's
Immortal Shield though, forgot that one as well.
Oh yeah. And actually, you know, a Staff of Flowing Water on Nash as well, because thing is, if you escape that CC for one moment, whoever is on you, whoever the Yumi's on rather, is going to run, is going to go like the clappers. They're going to go break the speed of sound. Jack's playing. It is an idiom from the English language.
Well done.
I don't know the origin of.
I could make something up.
Do we have time?
So what it will be,
Right.
in Terry Pratchett form, is basically when a train would come past, the way people would know that the mail had been delivered is actually a fight in the mid lane, but not that much longer.
No, continue.
Okay,
I am hooked.
So, and the idea is, it's like, you know, like you get like the ball.
Oh, Jack's Blank is hooking, so
okay,
you know, screw it.
Enough about the clappers, more about Jack's Blank with a 3-man apprehend to murder them all. The Cyclone afterwards nowhere near enough. Finally, a Dawning Shadow comes through. It's just not going to matter. A double to the Darius, who's looking to rampage through a few more. They bleed out under their tier 2. Ericsson comes in, but it's not a heroic entrance. It is a small moment where they get the jungler, and that is all. Jax Blank maybe got knocked up on the tower, and maybe, just maybe, they can kill him off. He has to go gold, so Ericsson to try and time out the healing, but so much healing afterwards means it's an ace, and Riddle, out of nowhere, win the game, and they're going like the clappers now.
did some clapping on the way out too. It's in the 5v5. Galio's not there for the disengage. And the Jax Plank question, the Jax Plank problem has stumped Vanir, mainly because he's cut off them at the limbs. Only stumps remain. Vanir fall to 5 and 10.
Cut off at the feet. What a play from Jax Blank to end that game. It was stalling for so long. Just like that, it's over.
And you know what? Serious credit to Vanir for what seems to be like a continuation of what we've seen in this split, at least at this point in summer. All of our teams who are coming in with the lower game score are making it tough. They've upset at times. They made it very close to others. I think that Vanir, if they keep playing like this, they're still in with a shot at those playoffs. Of course, they have that game versus Bifrost coming up in their schedule, and they have to be so scared of these teams.
Absolutely, but it means they've only got 3 more wins available to them, and that is a tough, tough ask. They need at least 2 out of those 3.
That's not the only race, of course. Riddle coming out of the victors. Less, of course, we spent a lot of time talking about Vanir, and of course, it's a very compelling story. Riddle, we had questions about them. Are they still the second best team? There were still questions of them in this game, but this win has a lot of implications for them. Game on.
That race for top 2 for Riddle continues. The race for playoffs for Vanir hits a stumbling block, but that's enough from us for now. We'll throw to the desk to take it away from here.
The race for playoffs continues, and it seems like Riddle are looking for that second seed. Meanwhile, Vanir are one step away further from those playoffs, and we need to talk about this game. It was a shaky one, and regarding the way we saw the champion select, it seemed like Vanir were trying to save the top lane as much as they could.
Yeah, so I actually want to give props to Vanir, right? I actually do think they played through top pretty well. I think it was off the back of some Jax Plank mistakes and wave management. He got his ghost popped early, but they did manage to solo kill him, bringing in the Galio up early with the early ultimate because he got a kill early in mid lane. So yeah, props to Vanir.
It seems like it was a good start for Vanir, but Riddle were playing really slowly, but they did.
I think they did have the upper hand towards the top side of the map, especially when Galio ultimate is down. If we can bring in the first replay, you'll see that this Herald fight was always in the hands of Riddle. The fact that your main combo is Camille ult into Galio ult, as you will see in this replay right here, you do not have Galio ultimate at all. So you have lost all the spacing that Galio can provide. Even everything right here. If you see Tam Kench is level 6, Yuumi is not. So technically you have the upper hand when it comes to spells and wanting to play in these choke points, but you do not have your main weapon, which is again Camille Galio wombo combo, and therefore they lose this skirmish. Now, this is what's really funny, because later on Riddle end up throwing this game. They're trying to set up around Dragon and they get caught by this wombo combo that we actually mentioned. And if you look on this small minimap, look at him, he's ghosting through the map because he doesn't have teleport to join his team. And honestly, if we're talking about Ghost on Darius, this is your tool to play team fights. That extra movement speed allows you to close that gap between your opponents and actually punish them. So that was huge, the fact that Vanir had the decision making of pushing the buttons to actually engage right there, use their wombo combo with Camille and Galio to punish and take the Baron for themselves.
And this is what Initialize were talking about. This is a team that has a lot of light, but well, this is just ending with Jax Plank doing in a massive flank.
That was lights out.
Yeah, that's lights out. Hello guys, so I ghosted on the previous fight, I was not there. What about now? He's the one starting the fight, and we had some issues regarding Jax Plank joining the fights. How can he go to the team? Well, like this, with the Ghost and the Yuumi, I guess.
Yeah, so I do think there's a bit of disrespect on the Vanir's capability to engage with Jax Plank not being there, or maybe Jax Plank team, Riddle being too engageable upon, like they were too far forward. So what I do think happened though was, I completely lost my train of thought. Could you take it away, Troubles?
Of course.
My brain, I don't know what happened.
We talked about this in the green room as well, right? Vanir were lacking damage. The fact that the Senna went for Umbral Glaive first into a cliff. This is the support build. Stop building it when you're the main carry. You know, there was just no follow for Dreampulse damage. The only AP damage you're bringing is a Galio. Yes, he's going to build the Night Harvester first, but then he sort of falls off. Sylas scales so well with AP towards the late game, and then then you have a Senna poking everyone with a support build instead of Kraken Slayer. Like
That's exactly the point I wanted to make before I lost my train of thought. On top of that, if you look at Riddle's comp, the amount of healing they had, so the amount of damage you needed to cut through to actually kill the targets, like in those mid-game fights, you see them just running out of gas. Vanir would straight up run out of damage, and nothing would happen. It looked like such an insane engage, and then no one would die. It was really odd.
It's really interesting. You don't have that sustained damage, and something that we were bringing on the green room, the fact there's no Kraken Slayer on this Senna, there's no magic damage coming from that composition.
You know what? It reminded me of the meme, you know, when it's like 4 versus 5, and like Vanir have 5 members, but they can't kill anyone out of the 4 from Riddle. It's like the one where he pokes with this thing is like, please, just do something, and they just have no damage, man.
This is a good reading from Riddle, I believe, because they slowed down the game a lot. Eventually, they were like, okay, we're losing this, we need to slow this down, and Vanir couldn't fasten the game. They couldn't put the game back on their track. So this is a way for Riddle to play for their comp, like, let's chill into the late game, and then we can fight this on, right?
Yes. So I do think Riddle could have taken it a bit slower. They definitely did have scaling on their side because of the lack of damage and having a Yuumi plus hyper carries that Yuumi could sit on. So I definitely do think Riddle could have potentially played for more tier 2s whilst trading dragons. It was only a Cloud Soul, but they decided not to, and it worked out in the end.
In the end, they still got the victory. They still defeated Vanir, and they're looking for the second seed as we're going to jump into the interview with Nash from Riddle. Hello, welcome back. There he is. Okay, playing Yuumi. Explain yourself.
What were you eating on the side while playing?
Well, I had a few shows up, eating snacks. I'm not gonna get into details, but it was an enjoyable and relaxing experience.
And I think it was enjoyable for you as well, getting this victory, getting closer to that second seed, confirming your guys, confirming yourself. But you still have to fight versus Dusty. You're still looking for that battle versus Dusty on the second seed. What do you believe is your chances, or the Riddle's chances, to get Dusty away from second seed?
I mean, I think we have a good chance, though. A bit sloppy today. I felt like the game today at least went fairly controlled early on. Maybe we just had to slow it down a bit more. So, yeah. I mean, I think we're playing pretty... a bit crazy, but relatively controlled when we need to. So, I think we have good chances. Dusty also likes a lot of team fights, so...
Yeah.
Gonna be fun.
Okay,
I think it's more like a 1v1v 4v4, type of scenario.
It's gonna happen, yeah. We know that's gonna happen. 4v4, 1v1. It's a different map.
I mean, this is Riddle's blueprint, right? You play 1v1 on a side lane, and the rest of the team fights 4v4. It's like, guys, the entire team is here. It's like, no, somebody's missing. No, trust me. We're 4 people, the entire team is here. And on that subject, I feel like this is also your spear and your shield, and sometimes your spear tends towards yourself, meaning that if you do shut down Jack's Blank in the early game that a bunch of teams have tried to do, it seems like there is no workaround for Riddle. Is that something that you guys have also identified and worked around?
I mean, not necessarily. Like, you just have... I guess you can call them unlucky games, but like sometimes the game is pretty snowbally, regardless of if it's top or if it's bot. Like a lot of the time, if we get a lead bot, we can just take over. The same for top lane, and it snowballs fairly hard now. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily for top. It's just we need to be more controlled and slowing the pace down if enemy is playing hard for top or hard for bot, etc., and just adapt.
So that leads into a question that I have, probably the final one, where when you guys fought versus JDXL, the top lane was completely annihilated by Den and Kreis. There's no other way to say this one. If you guys end up in second seed, you have to fight JDXL in the best of 5. How do you think Riddle can defeat JDXL in the best of 5 if you guys get the second seed?
I mean, it's fairly simple strategy against JDXL. You just gank bot level 3 and then...
The meme doesn't stop.
Okay, I have another question on the subject.
Okay.
Best rel, you or FTG?
Oh.
I think it's... I don't know. I think we're both fairly good on rel. I think rel is also popping up a bit more now. They got played in NLC by Matt the other day, so...
Yeah, but who's the best?
I think we've both had good spots. I mean, we'll see, right?
No.
Who's the best, though? If you had to pick one.
I'm going to say me, and he's going to say himself.
There we go.
Hey, we got the fight. We got the fight. That's all we want. And now for the final question, just to throw you a curveball and be a dirty one. If we look into the bottom of playoffs, we have still a fight for the 6th seed, which means Bifrost could still make it or lose it to Vanir and Nuriki. in your mind, in your eyes as a player, who do you think is going to take the last spot at playoffs?
I mean, it's hard to say. I still have fairly high hopes for Bifrost. I think it's just taken them a bit longer than expected of themselves and everyone else to work out their problems. But I think this team is for sure stronger than Niriki and Vanir. So I think Bifrost will still take it.
Okay, interesting. Thank you so much for this interview. Good luck on the rest of the split, and don't play Yuumi.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a nice one.
Come on, man. If he can chill and eat on the side and take the free W, why not?
It is not League of Legends. You need both hands to play the
I
game.
feel like Yuumi players literally play like this.
They probably do.
They literally play like this.
I'm worried about the desk, but that's exactly how they play.
There is that French streamer who played Yuumi to platinum with his feet. So you're kind of you're kind of on point with that.
I'm dead. Now on to Vanir. When we look into this team, and it's actually as Nash was saying, they believe Bifrost will still make it to playoffs. They don't believe Vanir and Nuriki have what it takes to get there. Why is it that?
Sorry, could you repeat the question again?
Okay, I'll do it again. So looking into these bottom two teams that are still looking for the playoffs, Nuriki and Vanir. And Nash was saying Bifrost is just taking more time than they should to get there. I don't think Vanir and Nuriki will make it.
So I definitely think Nash has, he definitely has tall expectations for some of the players on Bifrost, right? If you look at them, they're a stacked roster. You've got Diamond Prox, you've got Shikari. These players have been around for ages and have always smurfed, been like top 2 in their roles, right? Like especially Shikari. I've known Shikari from way back when, not personally, but I played against him and he's always been insane. So I think that's definitely where that's coming from. And if you look at Nuriki, they definitely have players who you'd consider lower tier, right? But I do think that Nuriki's team play has been better.
Let's see. Let's talk with the other side, Vanir. Let's talk with Mirbs that is waiting for us on the interview. Welcome back into the interview. And this was a rough game. We need to talk about this one. This was a really good game for you guys to get closer to playoffs, but things are still not done. They're still not decided. What was the key plan from this sort of composition, if you can tell?
Hello, first of all.
Hello.
And, I don't know, I think we just went with something pretty simple. I think we have so many different ideas in the team, and I think this is something that has been working pretty good for us so far.
Okay, now I want to look into your build specifically because it's your build, so it's up to you. I just want to understand, there was a lack of damage on your team, probably a lot of lack of AP as well. And we were thinking, we were talking, maybe Kraken Slayer could fit in. Why did you go for the Umbral and the Eclipse? What made you make that decision? Yeah.
So I think it's just a lot of like vision control. I think the game is about vision. So I think just the Umbral is just a good fit in general to take over the map.
And Eclipse is really cheap, so that's why you went for that.
And then the Eclipse is just armor pen on your items, which is which have or you have cheap items in the build. So I think it's just a general good.
Okay, I was just wondering, so I wanted to get your vision from that one. Now looking into the team, and this is a tough question for you, Mirbs. Last interview we did, it seemed like the team mentality was going down. You guys were losing hope. Is this still the case? Or are you guys recovering? How are you in terms of mentality-wise?
I mean, I think it's obviously pretty mentally draining to be at the edge. But I think we're holding up. I think we're still looking to be the 6th place. And I think we have a good shot on doing it.
Obviously, we're looking into a team that had a lot of changes. Vanir did a lot of roster changes, you as well. And my question to you right now is, do you believe this is a team that is looking for the future or for the present right now? If it's for the present, yeah, obviously you guys need to make playoffs. You guys need to showcase yourselves. If it's for the future, you can skip playoffs and still be a good team on next year. What do you think the composition is made for?
I think we're looking for the present. I think we're just mainly looking to do as good as possible for now. And I'm not sure how the future will look. But I think, or I hope it's gonna end good here in the summer split.
Okay, let's see. It's up to you guys. So best of luck, and let's see what you guys can bring into the table. Thank you so much, Mirbs. Have a nice one. Always a pleasure.
Thanks. See ya.
It's a big question because sometimes we have teams that are set up for the future. Okay, we can lose this split and look for the next playoffs? And other teams are like, we're going to do it now. We want to do it now.
I think when it's summer, it's a little bit difficult because a lot of the teams are going to reshuffle just so they can get new teams together up for spring. So like every season, usually around summer, you will have a reshuffle. You will look at what key pieces you want to keep or what you want to replace, yada, yada, yada. But I feel like it's really difficult because when you're on the verge of making playoffs, last week was their week to actually make the comeback. They went 0-2. They're coming into this week. They're playing technically versus a really tough opponent in the likes of Riddle, who's the second seed right now in the NLC, and they lose to them. While it was in their hands all along to actually take it home, it must really sting.
Okay, before we move on, Aragon, let's look into the standings to understand how we are right now. Riddle a little closer to the second seed, and even the first one if JDXL is going to slip yet again. They did it twice, so let's see what happens throughout the rest of the split. Only 2 more weeks. Vanir, 8th place, 5-10. It's getting a little bit further. Bifrost have to lose today if they still want to keep that hope. Eragon, what do you feel about this?
I just wanted to quickly chime in before this. Sorry, apologies.
No, we can go back.
On the Vanir mentality thing, where they said they were staying in the present, I just wanted to say, from a player perspective, I think that really is the best mentality, right? Like when I was a player and we were in crunch time, like my highest peak was Telea Masters, right? There was a lot of stress. I do think you have to take it one game at a time and prep for each game individually as much as you can, because it's easy to get caught up in the standings, the narratives, we have to win X amount of games. So I really like the mentality. That's all I wanted to comment.
Let's see if they can get it working together until the last games of the split. They still have 3 show matches to come in and maybe jump into playoffs.